In a small Midwestern town, 2 baby girls were born to teenage parents, and a few years later, a boy was born. The subject of our story was the middle child, the second girl, who was certain her parents were wishing for a boy and were disappointed about her very existence. She was a shy, passive child who often got lost in the family hubbub. At age 3, the little girl showed a proclivity toward the piano, and music became her preferred method of communication. As an adolescent, she felt lost, misunderstood, and ignored in this family. She had an unconventional artist's mind. She was painfully quiet, and her parents were busy working and caring for others, including foster children who were quite needy and sometimes even violent. She was raised in a charismatic Christian church, but from a young age, she had doubts about her religion that she felt unable to express. 1 week after graduating college, she moved 3,000 miles away to California to build her own life. As a young adult, she was drawn to others who matched the lack of love and acceptance she felt from her family. After much therapy and tough lessons from the School of Hard Knocks, by her 40s, she fully accepted herself as a feminist, pantheist, Unitarian Universalist, pro-choice, liberal democratic lesbian. In other words, she was the black sheep that her parents and siblings would never accept. She surrounded herself with others of like mind and created her own family, both literally with a wonderful son and a perfect wife, and figuratively with church friends and musician colleagues who supported and celebrated her aberrant lifestyle. Though very happy with her life, she carried a dull sadness because of her lack of love and acceptance she felt from her family. She tried to fill that hole inside with food, work, and love from her created family and animals, as you can see. But the pain just gnawed at her, especially at holidays and special moments she would like to have shared with her family of origin. She thought she could never really go home again, and it broke her heart. The end. Today's talk will be about how, through a series of truly extraordinary events, some would call miracles, my story changed, and I was able to go home again and become reconciled with my parents. My dad, John Syverson, is a successful financial advisor and estate planner with his own company. Like so many top executives, his career involved long hours working to the detriment of his family life. Last fall, he was at a conference with other successful business people, and the speaker was Mitch Harris, a tell-it-like-it-is former banker from England, who shared his own story of reconciliation with his father during his father's last months. Mitch's talk definitely hit a nerve. The conference organizers canned the rest of the planned speeches and activities, and Mitch taught his method of family reconciliation to this captive audience for the remainder of the conference. My dad sought him out after one of his talks, and in tears, told him that he was the miracle he had asked God for. He wanted to get his daughter back. They chatted as much as they could during the conference, and then my dad hired Mitch to come back to the Midwest in a few months for the full treatment. For 2 full days, Mitch and his British colleague, Andy Bryce, taught my dad about perceptions, the fluid nature of right and wrong, the reticular activating system, and how to resolve conflicts with family members. Mitch and Andy knew my dad's Christianity was very important to him, and they asked him for examples about Jesus accepting others. It was then that my dad had a major light bulb moment. He realized he could accept without condoning. After all, Jesus made friends with prostitutes, thieves, and heathens. In fact, his primary message was just to love each other no matter what, no strings attached. The Unitarian Universalist denomination offers the same concept with our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. In October, I received an email from Mitch with the subject line, Family Unity, asking if I would be open to talking with him on the phone. My mother had warned me that he might be contacting me, mentioning something about my dad wanting to get our family closer. I had been burned a few years earlier by another group with a similar name, so I was very hesitant. But I agreed to speak to Mitch, and I subsequently agreed to participate in the training that my dad had just gone through. I had no idea what I was getting into, but I loved Mitch's jaunty accent, and I desperately wanted to get my parents back. I knew my dad had already invested a major amount of money, and if he was willing to invest more to bring Mitch and Andy out again, he must be serious about wanting to get engaged in my life again. I told Mitch I would participate, but if my dad hurt me, I would quit. Mitch said if my dad hurt me, he would fire him as a client. So we went ahead with our grand adventure. In January this year, Mitch and Andy came to California, and we had the same 2 days of training that my dad had. I will summarize what I learned from them, but please realize this took literally 16 hours of hard work and dozens of handwritten flipboard pages taped all over the walls. One of Mitch's primary tenets was that there are many ways of seeing the truth. If two people witnessed a car accident on the street corner, they might have two completely different versions of the story, depending on their physical viewpoint, their past experience, and how much they were paying attention at the time of the accident. After doing several exercises and creating several lists, I realized I have a tendency to think I'm right and the other guy therefore must be wrong. This is where acceptance without condoning comes in. When I heard that my dad was willing to accept me without condoning my choices, I was petulant and wondered, why couldn't he accept me and condone me? But Mitch said, well, that would be like your dad really wishing you would become a Christian, move back to Iowa, and not be gay anymore. Okay, never mind. Accepting without condoning is pretty good. So in practice, this means that with effort and conscious choices, I can accept people who have different religious beliefs from me, different worldviews, or different political beliefs, which will come in handy during the next 15 months until the next presidential election. I don't have to surround myself with people who think just like me, though that is wonderful and comfortable. But I can have relationships with others outside of my safe circle if I remember I can accept without condoning. This model is very conducive to interfaith work or social justice work with people who are different from myself, different races, cultures, classes, immigration status, gender identities, and so on. Unitarian Universalism's third principle is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. If we replace congregations with families, we would have a mighty recipe for listening to and understanding in order to resolve family conflicts. When the principle mentions spiritual growth, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're encouraging others to grow in the same direction as ourselves, but to encourage others to grow toward their own path. Another concept that Mitch and Andy taught me was the reticular activating system, or RAS. It's a tiny section of our brains that acts like a filter for the millions of bits of data that come at us every moment of every day. It filters out what is not valuable to you and focuses in on what is valuable to you. It only lets data enter the conscious brain that match with our beliefs and our experience. My son Joey provides a great example of this. He's become very interested in cars, particularly luxury cars. So whenever we are driving around town, he catches sight of countless Lamborghinis, Maseratis, Aston Martins, and even Bentleys. When I drive around, I see nothing but the long line of cars in front of me, impeding my swift commute, or the car who just cut me off is veering into my lane. Luxury cars are not activated in my RAS. On a more personal level, for over 40 years, my RAS has been searching for data that supports my belief that my parents don't love me, don't accept me, don't understand me, ultimately that I am unlovable. The story at the beginning of this talk was created using that filter. The RAS is part of us, but we can consciously shift what the RAS is searching for and filtering out. Try it out by asking your mind to focus on Lamborghinis on the way home from church today, and I bet you'll see one or two. Toward the end of my 2 days with the blokes from England, Andy worked with me on some deep sadnesses and traumas using a technique called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's an alternative psychological tool that uses tapping on meridian points as a way to access emotional content. The act of tapping distracts the mind from its typical patterns. I had a few major breakthroughs about decades-old emotional baggage. Tapping also helps the emotions come and go like a wave without completely suffocating me. If I get choked up or feeling like I want to shut down in a conversation, I've learned to just tap on the back of my hand and I'm able to push through to the other side. You might see me tapping a lot today. Before I said goodbye to these chaps, they promised that if I would be vulnerable enough to go through a similar 2-day process with my parents, that I would feel completely accepted, understood, and loved by them by the end of it. I figured I had nothing to lose at that point and only everything to gain. So my dad paid for Mitch and Andy to fly out to California again, and my parents also flew out here for the meetings in Costa Mesa. This time my mom and my wife, Jan, were involved so they could support the growth and learning of my dad and I, and also so we could use the tools in our relationships as well. Mitch taught us an amazing communication tool to resolve what he calls upsets. Upset is a noun in British English, it seems, instead of an adverb or a verb as in American English. The tool, basically a script, forces you to listen to understand so you can resolve conflicts. Andy reminded my dad that in business your goal is to win, but in family life your goal is to have resolution. When you're in a discussion with someone else, do you ever notice yourself forming your counter-argument while you're supposedly listening to the other person? Well, listening to understand is a completely different beast. So first we practiced on inconsequential little upsets, and we later worked on larger upsets that have been boiling for a decade or more. Here's how the system works. There's an outline of a script that you must use word for word. There's no crosstalk. You can't say, but that's not what I said, or that's not what I meant, or you're a shameless bald-faced liar. You don't even have to agree or condone, but you have to be open to understanding and accepting the other person's feelings. So today I will give you a brief example of resolving a little upset. I need a volunteer to go through the script with me. Is there a volunteer? It's really easy, and there's a script will be up on the screen.
I'll do it.
All right, Stacy, come on up.
All right.
Okay. So this is one of the practice upsets that I used with Jan at our meeting. We had just adopted a husky named Blue from our neighbor, and he was a bit like a wild animal that we were trying to civilize. My upset was that in the middle of the night, Blue would jump on me when he wanted to go outside. So here's your script. First you summarize what my upset was.
You were really upset that Blue jumps on you in the middle of the night. Yes?
It's on.
It's on. Okay.
And then you say number 2.
Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Is there more?
Well, yeah, actually there is more. It really upsets me because Blue wakes me up out of a deep sleep. And it hurts because he's 60 pounds. I wish he would stop.
Is there more?
So you have to start over, summarize that last part.
All right, I got it. You start from the top and go down. I got it. So you're in a deep sleep and he weighs a whole lot and he jumps on you and gets you right out of your sleep. Did I hear that right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Is there more?
Well, yeah, there is more. I'm worried because I feel like he will never stop jumping on me, and he'll be a terrible dog, and I would have made a mistake adopting him, and we might have to give him back.
So what I heard you say is that you might have made a terrible mistake and might have to get the dog back. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that was right.
Is there more?
No, that's it. Thank you for your help. You're done. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Because I could tell Stacy really listened to me because she was summarizing what I just said, I was able to get everything off my chest. Because of that, my little upset evolved into a deeper fear of having to give our dog back. It started off just that he was annoying me, but there was really a deeper fear in there that conversation brought out. There are a few more steps to the process, but at the very end, the person who's been listening says, now that I see the situation from your perspective, I can understand your feelings, and I am truly sorry. Now, if our dog Blue could talk, he could repeat the whole process from his point of view if he wished to do so. Mitch's tool for resolution encourages all the parties to get everything off their chest and to feel heard and understood. I've shared my upsets with countless therapists along the way, and they have definitely helped me. But this process was so much more powerful. It's quite different to feel heard and understood by the person who hurt you, rather than by a professional who's paid to listen to you. Now, imagine doing this listen to understand exercise over a bigger upset. For instance, something that really hurt your feelings and caused the parties involved to not speak to each other for years. Imagine at the end of that process hearing the person who hurt your feelings say, now that I see the situation from your perspective, I can understand your feelings, and I am truly sorry. Then imagine that person giving you a hug and not letting you go for a long time. Then imagine knowing that that person has this tool at their disposal to work through future upsets, big or small. Then imagine a phone conversation every Sunday filled with laughter and love as you and your father get to know each other. Imagine how that might bring a family back together. Imagine how that might change your life story. Well, that's what happened to me. A strange and unexpected twist of fate came 2 weeks after our final meeting. Mitch had a massive heart attack in his sleep and died. It rattled me to my core. What about his working with my siblings? What if I needed his help later on? I needed him. He really changed my life. Of course, we still have Andy on our side, and I continue to do EFT with Andy via Skype. But I am motivated to honor Mitch's legacy by sharing my story and inspiring other families toward reconciliation. Here's one more story for you before I finish. Once upon a time, in a small Midwestern town, 2 baby girls were born to teenage parents, and a few years later, a baby boy was born. The subject of our story was the middle child, the second girl, who was told that her parents were thrilled when they got pregnant with her and were so happy to have another girl to play with her older sister. She was an introverted child who spent a lot of time happily playing independently. At age 3, the little girl showed a passion for the piano, and music became her true voice. Her parents were very proud of her musical accomplishments. They supplied her with the best teachers and the best instruments available, and they attended every performance she gave. As an adolescent, she felt unique and artistic and quietly excelled at her studies and creative endeavors. Her parents worked hard to care for their family, plus they cared for others in need, including foster children. She was raised in a charismatic Christian church where she learned the nature of God's love. From a young age, she had doubts about her religion, so as she grew older, she explored other options. Her parents sent her to music school at an excellent liberal arts college, and she exited with a bachelor's degree and no student loans. She felt so confident that she moved 3,000 miles away to California 1 week after graduating college to live her dream of being a musician. As a young adult, she had many grand adventures, met lots of interesting people, and made some mistakes, as most young adults do. Through effective therapy and life lessons learned, by her 40s, she fully accepted herself as a feminist, pantheist, Unitarian Universalist, pro-choice, liberal, democratic lesbian. Even though her family of origin didn't share her beliefs, they kept loving her and stayed connected. She surrounded herself with others of like mind and created her own family, both literally, with a fantastic son and a perfect wife, and figuratively, with church friends and musician colleagues who supported and celebrated her just as she was. She was very content with her life, and she was grateful for her parents, who taught her values like unconditional love, academic discipline, helping out the underdog, valuing yourself, and following your dreams while always staying connected with your family. It is possible to rewrite your own story. You can go home again. The end.